Too often, we find ourselves in moments of deep discouragement, when it feels like everything we've worked for is slipping through our fingers. Then we begin to ask God, "Why aren't you doing something? Why are you letting this happen? You see me, you know what I'm going through." The struggle is real, and the questions feel endless. Maybe it's the mistreatment at work, the toxic relationships that seem to never end, or the unfair treatment from people who should have had your back. You're doing everything you can, but nothing seems to change. Or maybe it's your health. Your body betrays you. I did everything I was supposed to do, so why is my body failing me? Maybe it's the career that hasn't moved forward the way you expected. You put in the long hours, gave your best effort, sacrificed time with loved ones, and yet you didn't get that promotion. You've seen others get ahead, people who don't even work as hard as you, and it feels like a slap in the face. You think, "I worked so hard, God. I gave my all, and it feels like it's not enough. Why didn't I get the recognition I deserve?" Perhaps it's the longing for a family that hasn't yet been fulfilled. Month after month, you hope, you pray, and still no baby comes. You see others getting pregnant easily, or you watch your friends raise children, and it stings. You ask yourself, "Why, God? I've always wanted this. Why haven't you blessed me with this gift?" Or maybe you're still waiting for the right person, the one who will make everything fall into place. You've had your share of heartbreaks, relationships that seemed promising but ended in disappointment. Now, it feels like the right person will never come along, and the loneliness begins to gnaw at your soul. When will it be my turn, God? When will I find love? Every day feels like a battle you didn't sign up for. You wonder, why is this happening to me? We all have our own stories, our own struggles, our own moments of questioning. And in those moments, it's easy to think, if only things could change, then I'll be happy. When my health improves, when I finally get that promotion, when I meet the right person, when I have a baby, when things go according to plan, then I'll have a good attitude. Then I'll believe. Then I'll trust. But here's the truth, that's conditional trust. It's the belief that we will only be faithful, only be joyful, only be content when things go according to our timetable, according to our plans, according to our expectations. It's saying, "God, if you answer my prayers the way I want, if you meet my demands, then I'll be okay. But if things don't change, if you don't fix this, I don't know if I can keep going." The problem with conditional trust is that life isn't predictable. It doesn't follow our schedules or our to-do lists. We can't control when promotions happen, when our health improves, or when our prayers are answered. Sometimes, we do everything right, we work hard, we pray with all our hearts, and still, things don't go the way we want, and it's easy to feel like we've been forgotten, like our efforts don't matter, or that God doesn't care. Life will always throw us curveballs, and there will always be things we don't understand, things that don't happen fast enough, or things that don't turn out the way we imagined. That's when our trust is really tested, not when life is going smoothly, but when everything feels like it's falling apart. You may be looking at your life and wondering, why is this happening? Why am I still waiting? The frustration builds, the disappointment lingers, and it feels like the dreams you once had are fading, unreachable. You may even question whether God is really there or whether He's paying attention to your struggles. You wonder, Why didn't God show up when I needed him the most? But here's the reality: God's love is not conditional. He doesn't love us based on our circumstances, our successes, or the things we can achieve. He doesn't love us because we meet some set of expectations. His love is unwavering. Even when our world is falling apart, His presence isn't dependent on things going the way we want them to. He sees our pain, our frustration, and our fears. And He's with us, even when we don't feel it. It's okay to feel discouraged. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to feel like life isn't fair. But in those moments, we have a choice. Will we trust God only when things are going our way? Or will we choose to trust Him even when life doesn't make sense? Because here's the thing: God doesn't promise that everything will be perfect. He doesn't promise that our health will always be good, our relationships will always be easy, or our careers will always go smoothly. What He promises is His presence. What He promises is that we're not alone, that even in the middle of our brokenness, He is there. Even when it feels like everything is falling apart, He is working behind the scenes, crafting a story that we can't yet see. Maybe right now, you're in a season of waiting, a season of confusion, a season of pain. And maybe it feels like God is silent, like He's not showing up the way you want Him to. But trust me when I say this: God is still good, even when life isn't. His love for you doesn't change, even when your circumstances do. He's still at work, and He sees you. So, instead of saying, "God, I'll trust you if you do this," try saying, "God, I trust you no matter what happens." Even in the waiting, even in the pain, even in the unanswered prayers. I will trust you because you are good, and your love never fails. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. As much as we try to plan, as much as we trust that things will unfold according to our ideals and values, the truth is that life is unpredictable. We make choices, we hold on to our dreams, and we place our trust in a path that we believe is aligned with our values, hoping that God will walk beside us through every step. But sometimes, the path we envisioned for ourselves is not the path we walk. And when that happens, the questions can be overwhelming. Why did this happen? Why is everything falling apart? Why hasn't God answered my prayers? Let me tell you my story. I was a young girl with a heart full of hope, dreams, and high ideals. I kept myself as a decent young woman, saved myself for marriage, believing that one day, I would marry the right person and live the life I had always dreamed of. I believed that life would unfold in a perfect sequence: find the right partner, get married, have children, and live a life that was aligned with my values. It seemed so simple, so certain. I trusted that God would lead me, and that my life would reflect His plans for me, but then everything came crashing down. I was abused. I found myself pregnant, and in an instant, everything I thought I knew about myself and my life unraveled. The future I had imagined, the plans I had trusted in, all seemed to evaporate. I was left broken, confused, and filled with pain. The road ahead looked dark, uncertain, and terrifying. I had always imagined a different beginning to motherhood, one that came after marriage, one that was filled with joy and celebration. Instead, I was faced with shame, confusion, and the weight of a situation I never saw coming. I felt betrayed by life. I felt betrayed by God. Why, God? I asked over and over again. Why did this happen to me? Why is my life turning out this way? The anger welled up inside me. How could I trust in a God who allowed this to happen? How could I keep my faith in Him when everything I held dear seemed to be falling apart? My anger turned into bitterness, and my bitterness turned into a deep, festering pain. I resented the child growing inside of me, even though I knew it wasn't her fault. It didn't matter that she was beautiful, that she was precious. All I saw was the scar on my life. I couldn't see her for who she was, a gift from God. I was too consumed with my own hurt, my own shattered dreams, to appreciate her. Then, one day, something shifted. It was a small moment, a quiet conversation with a colleague who had been a source of comfort for me. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You are not defined by your situation. You are not your mistakes. God sees you. He knows your pain, and He's still with you." Those words, simple but powerful, pierced through the wall of anger I had built around my heart. She reminded me that it was okay to be angry with God, but it wasn't okay to turn away from Him. "Don't drift away from His presence," she urged. "He's there with you, even in your darkest hour." It wasn't an immediate change, but it was a start. After about 3 years, slowly, I began to pray. Not the kind of prayers I had prayed before, those prayers of expectation, of asking for things to go the way I thought they should. No, this time, my prayers were raw. I prayed for protection. I prayed for healing. I prayed for clarity. But above all, I prayed for trust. I asked God to help me trust Him again. I prayed with a broken heart, asking for answers, but slowly I began to feel something shift within me. A small whisper, a quiet assurance that God was still with me. That even in the pain, even in the confusion, He had not abandoned me. I had to learn that true faith is not about getting everything we want, or about having our life unfold according to our timetable. True faith is trusting God when life doesn't make sense, when it's painful, when it's unfair. It's trusting that God is still good, even when everything around us feels broken. I struggled with this for a long time. I didn't want to be in the situation I found myself in. I had dreams, hopes, and expectations for my life. And none of those dreams had included this. I had hoped for a conventional path, marriage, family, stability. But life had taken me in a different direction. And for a long time, I resisted it. I wanted things to go my way, and when they didn't, I couldn't understand why God wasn't answering my prayers. But in the midst of my pain, God began to show me something. He had a purpose for me that went beyond what I could see at that moment. It took time, but eventually, I began to see it. The child I had once resented, the child I had believed was the result of my greatest failure, became the greatest blessing of my life. It took me 3 years to accept her. Those first years were filled with confusion, anger, and grief. But slowly, as I watched her grow, I began to see the love and joy she brought into my life. She was not the mistake I had thought she was. She was a gift. A beautiful, bright, determined, loving soul who brought light into my world in ways I could never have imagined. Today, she is a top student, cheerful, loving, peaceful, and determined. She inspires me every day with her love for God, and her life reminds me of the beauty of forgiveness, grace, and the unconditional love of God. I feel so much love for her now, that I wish I could go back to those first 3 years and make up for all the time I had lost. I wish I could go back and cherish every moment with her. But I know now that everything happened in its time, and God had a purpose for her, and for me, through it all. What I thought was my darkest hour, the trauma, the unexpected pregnancy, turned out to be a turning point. It led me to a deeper relationship with God, to a place of healing and redemption. I learned that life doesn't always go according to plan, but that doesn't mean God is absent. Even when things don't make sense, He is working behind the scenes. Faith is trusting God when life doesn't make sense. There will always be unanswered questions. Why did this happen to me? Why am I still waiting? Why is everything so hard? And some things may never make sense this side of eternity. But what I know now is this: God is good even when life isn't. He doesn't cause our pain, but He will use it for something greater. We may not see it today, but we can trust that He is working in ways we can't understand. Your pain is not wasted. Your struggles are not in vain. God is at work, even in the moments when you feel abandoned. Trust Him, even when you don't understand. Because He is good. And in His time, He will show you the beautiful purpose He has been working out all along. But sometimes, we become so focused on our desires, we can't imagine being happy unless things go exactly as we've planned. I can't be happy unless I get the job, or find the right partner, or everything goes according to my ideal future. That's out of balance. Anything that you feel you must have in order to be happy can be used against you. It's important to be honest with God. Tell Him your dreams, your struggles, what you're hoping for. God, this is what I want. I'm asking you to help me, heal me, open doors for me. But after you've prayed, be mature enough to say, but God, if it never happens, if things don't go as I planned, if my circumstances don't change, I'm still going to trust you. It's easy to get consumed with what we want, and let it define our happiness. But sometimes, God calls us to lay down even the things that are most important to us and trust that He has a better plan. It's freeing when you can say, God, it's in your hands, I trust you, not because it's working out my way, but because I know you are faithful even when I don't understand. In the Bible, Paul describes a thorn in his flesh, a hardship he didn't want. He asked God 3 times to take it away, but God didn't. Instead, God said to Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you." Sometimes, God doesn't remove the thing that is causing us pain or confusion, but He gives us the strength to endure it. And if God isn't removing the burden, or changing the situation the way we want, it's not an excuse to live with bitterness or negativity. He has given us the grace to handle it. We can still choose to have a good attitude, to stay hopeful, and to trust that God is doing something in us through the struggle. Unconditional trust means saying, God, I don't understand this. I don't like it, but I trust that you are in control. You know what's best for me. We can look at the difficulty and choose to embrace peace, even when it's hard. God is still working out His plan for us, even if we can't see it at the moment. Sometimes, what we go through is difficult, but God is preparing us for something better. We can't see the bigger picture right away, but when we trust Him, He will bring beauty out of the ashes. Just like those 3 Hebrew men in the Bible, who were thrown into a fiery furnace, but said, even if God doesn't deliver us, we will not bow down. They trusted God, no matter what. That's the kind of trust we need, unconditional trust, even when we don't understand the why behind it. If you're going through something difficult, something that feels like it might break you, remember that God is with you. It may not look like it's going your way right now, but He has a plan. And when you trust Him unconditionally, you take away the enemy's power. Your life is in His hands. His plan is greater than your own. Looking back over my life, I can see how God used the things I never expected, the challenges, the heartaches, to shape me into who I am today. What seemed like the end was just the beginning of a new chapter. And though I didn't understand it all at the time, I can now see how His plan has always been better than mine. When you trust Him, even when life doesn't make sense, you'll see how He can bring beauty from the most unexpected places.